Welcome to the Let's Eat Grandma Career Warrior Podcast.
Welcome to the 21st episode of the Let's Eat Grandma Career Warrior Podcast. I am so excited for today. Today we're going to have an episode that is quite different. We're going to talk about how you can use hypnosis. Yes, that's right, you heard me. Hypnosis to boost your job search. Today we have Mark Tyrrell, the creative director of Uncommon Knowledge, which is the largest provider of hypnosis in the world. Mark has been working as a hypnotherapist since 1995. Together with his team, Mark has served over 600,000 hypnosis downloads and treated 5,000 patients in personal one-on-one therapy. Mark has helped thousands upon thousands to improve their self-esteem and overcome major life obstacles, including depression, panic attacks, and anxiety. You guys, hypnosis is a real thing. I've been listening to their downloads for the last 4 years and can't explain to you the effect that it's had on my life. And it is crazy the wide range of things that hypnosis can be used to help with. I've been on the website and they tackle major issues such as improving self-esteem, all the way down to stopping those minor bad habits. I even saw stop nose picking on their website and just was blown away. So here's the craziest part of it all, guys. Mark is actually going to perform a mini hypnosis session at the end for all of you guys to get acquainted with the practice. You heard me right. You're getting hypnotized. I can't emphasize this enough. Please find a good place to do the session. Be smart. I know many of you are driving or performing tasks while listening to this podcast, but do yourself a favor, pause this podcast, come back to it whenever you want, and do the hypnosis. But please, no hypnotic drivers out there. So, how can you benefit from hypnosis? As you listen to this session, start thinking about how some of the unconscious behaviors and thought patterns may be holding you back in your career. Is it your confidence? Is it interview nerves? Is it your inability to face criticism? We are here for you, and this session is going to help you on the much deeper level. All right, so let's get to it. Without further ado, here's Mark Tyrrell on Get Hypnotized, Unlocking Your Job Search Potential. Mark, it's great to have you on. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day, if a bit cold over here in England.
Excellent. So you're over in which part of England?
I'm in Brighton, which is on the south coast. So there's palm trees and wall-to-wall sandy beaches. Not really. It's a cool beach, and it's pretty misty and cold, as you'd expect, as you'd imagine.
That's exactly what I'd imagine. Yeah, in Austin, it's not much better, but it tends to be a lot more bright than over in your part of the world.
Indeed.
Excellent. So, I want to open it up by hearing about your story. How did you get started with hypnosis, and what is your background, sir?
Okay, well, I guess I've always been interested in the mind and the way the mind works. And I used to do, when I was a lot younger, used to do a lot of athletics. And I would, I'd do decathlon, and I would do little tricks in my head, like, with the high jump, I would imagine that it was, I was leaping longwards, not highwards. So, 1 meter 90 was no big deal, sort of thing, so I've always been interested in human excellence, if you like. When I was 20, I went to work as a psychiatric nurse in a what they call a locked ward, which was a hospital for severely disturbed people who were deemed to be a threat to themselves or
sure
and to other people.
Sure.
And that really, woke me to the extremes of human mental suffering, if you like. I was only there for 2 years. I think that's probably enough doing that kind of thing, although I loved it in a way. But I had a young family, so I needed to earn a bit more money. And there's not much money in that sort of thing, although there should be. So I worked in a housing association for a while, but I thought, well, this isn't really what I want to do, And so I retrained. I trained as a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist at St Answell Hospital in London, and started seeing clients at the age of 27. And what I was finding was that I was seeing people who'd been similar to the people I'd seen in the psychiatric hospital. People who were severely depressed, sometimes extremely phobic, extremely traumatized, and I was helping them not medically, not through sort of psychotropic drugs. Obviously,
Right.
through words, and that was to me astonishing, that you, because it was very much a revolving door sort of scenario in the hospital, where you get the same patients coming in and out again, and basically the therapy would be just adjusting their drug treatment, and that, or occasionally electric shock treatment as well in those days. And I was finding that I was having really good results more often than not with people who weren't supposed to be helped through non-chemical means, if you like, and that to me was incredible. And then I started running workshops pretty early on as well for the public, teaching them the sort of basics of hypnosis and how to do it, doing demonstrations as well. I was extremely nervous when I started doing that.
I would be too.
it didn't kind of stop me doing it, but I was very, very naive. This was before the internet even, you can imagine.
Wow.
Such. And I put out 300 leaflets, I remember, around my hometown. And it was so naive, what's 300 leaflets going to do? But I got 17 or 18 people coming along to my first workshop. And I thought, wow, there is something here. People are interested. And, they were, average Joes coming along. But sometimes I get psychiatrists or doctors or psychologists coming along. And that really, helped my confidence doing what I was doing, because they were as intrigued as anyone else was, so.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought, well, this is something that everybody seems to be interested in. And I would do demonstrations of hypnosis, and I would do a phobia cure on the workshop as well, or a trauma cure as a sort of grand finale of the 2-day workshop. And then eventually I met my current business partner, who's based in Scotland now, and he probably more business-minded than I am. Engineering degree, so
that's Roger.
Yeah, that's Roger. Yeah, and he was extremely good at sort of building the business, and we built it together. But we started running a diploma course at Brighton University. We did that for 10 years, and we trained people in solution-focused psychotherapy and using hypnosis as a tool. Because it's important to stress that hypnosis isn't a therapy; it's a tool that you use in therapy.
Okay.
It's a naturally occurring human state of consciousness that really works well when you tap into it,
Sure.
for human performance, but also overcoming difficulties and blocks and so forth as well. So it's a tool. And it's only as good as the surrounding psychotherapy that is used within, so to speak. So we ran the diploma course, and then we got online in pretty early, about 2001, started hypnosis downloads in 2003, and now we do online training. And I still see clients one-to-one. We've got a facility for therapists called UPTV, Uncommon Practitioners Therapy Videos, which is basically lots of video of me doing therapy with real clients. And so therapists watch that as well, but we've also got the Hypnosis Download site and other sites as well. So we've kind of built it up over 20 years or so, really, which is amazing.
It absolutely is. And I can't remember the first time I did stumble upon your downloads. I think, I'm trying to think what it was. I know you guys have very good SEO, so I was able to Google something of the like, and you guys came up first for hypnosis. And I remember for me, I was going through a very rough time in my life. At the time I was in transition, a career transition, and I can't really thank you enough, because really what it did was it really got deep down, and it really helped me to kind of control these things, and really gave a really profound improvement in my life. So I think what you're doing out there is just so incredibly helpful, and I really want as many people as possible to really see the power of what this can do as a tool. So.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, the downloads themselves, they're not a replacement for therapy, but they can help people enormously. I mean, we have had people write to us saying they'd spent thousands of dollars on psychiatrists, and they got more help out of
the downloads.
$14.95 download. Well, that was one comment anyway.
Sure.
But yes, I mean, it does seem to be that lots of people have benefited from them, and that's extremely, because all those years ago in the psychiatric hospital, I used to sit there thinking, well, I haven't really done, what am I doing for these people, other than medicating them and being nice to them, which was a small thing in a way. But it does seem to feel that it all stemmed from there. But the other thing with hypnosis, of course, is that there's been an assumption that's spread around our culture, Western world, that you have to think happy thoughts in order to be happy. That what you think produces an emotion, but of course the brain doesn't really work like that. It's not to say that what we think isn't important.
Sure.
But what we think is so often a manifestation of what we're feeling. So you have the feeling first, and then the thought. Which is kind of sort of counters this cognitive behavioral kind of ethos or ideology, but as far as brain science is concerned, that's sort of what's happening. So really, we use hypnosis to tap into the part of the mind which, if you like, is producing and maintaining the problem, which isn't always the cognitive part of the mind. The cognitive mind just backs up the emotional part of the mind, more often than not. So that's a rationale for using hypnosis.
Sure. And I want to kind of go into what some of the misconceptions are of hypnosis, because I'll tell you, the first time I ever became acquainted with hypnosis was when I was 5 years old, watching Scooby-Doo cartoons and watching, I think, Shaggy get hypnotized. But I kind of want to go into what hypnosis really is and how we could kind of debunk some of those myths.
Okay, well, it wasn't me that was hypnotizing Shaggy all those years ago, but I swear. He came to see me for smoking cannabis. He was
there. We go.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the you have this sort of myth that you're totally unconscious, like you're in a coma or something like this, and of course it's an altered state, but it's not a completely different state to everyday awareness. So people generally recall stuff and they're aware on the conscious level. It's more of a
right.
disassociated state rather than an unconscious state. It's not like a coma,
So there's no blackout that is being introduced. There's a good chance you'll remember some of the parts of the session.
Yeah, all parts of the session, absolutely.
Yeah. Sure.
It's like if you watch a movie for 90 minutes, that's really engrossing. Then you're not necessarily going to remember all of it, straight
right.
away. Bits might come back to you later on and so forth. So that's one element, and the other element, of course, is it's entirely natural. That every time you dream at night, we all dream for about 20% of sleep time. If we're not depressed, if we're depressed, we dream a lot more than that. But if we're non-depressed, we'll dream about 25% of sleep time. And of course, when you're dreaming, you're completely disassociated. It's the deepest hypnotic trance that you can have, really, because generally speaking, you're not aware that you're in bed consciously. You're not aware that what's going on in your everyday life. You're totally focused. You're disassociated from your surroundings and associated to the contents of your imagination, which you're living through as you're producing it. So it's quite an amazing and creative thing. Anyone who says they're not creative but dreams, of course, are incredibly creative.
Sure.
So that would be nature's hypnotic trance that we will experience for about 2 hours every day or every night, intermittently through the night. When we're hypnotizing someone, we're not controlling them. I don't control somebody through hypnotizing them. What we're doing is giving them more control, in a sense. So we're helping them access the part of their mind which can do things that they don't know how to do consciously. Okay, whether that's feel calm when they're public speaking or in a job interview, or whether that's to cure warts, or control pain, or just start to feel better. If we're treating depression, then of course we need to look at the depressive thinking styles, the absolutist, the extremist, the all or nothing thinking, the perfectionism, perhaps the lifestyle and the avoidance versus going for what they need in life and so forth.
Sure.
But ultimately we need to relax the person as well, because it's a condition of stress. Depression is a stressed brain. A depressed person has a stressed brain. So we're using hypnosis partly just to relax the person, to normalize their cortisol stress hormone, but also to help them begin to perceive reality differently and with less depressive biases and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
We use hypnosis in different ways, really.
And the fact that you said at the beginning that it really should be a tool, and I think using it to enhance some of these other things. So if this person is going to therapy, it isn't the therapy itself. It's something that can supplement that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's right. And so the person using it needs to have a sensible basis in psychology. They need to know
Sure.
why they're doing it, so we're not dragging people back into the past just to re-experience pain again and so forth. We're using it respectfully and comfortably for the person. That's really what we're doing.
So why, Mark, do you think it's so important to go beyond the regular conscious mind and our thoughts? So can I just think myself better when dealing with these issues, or?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you can. There was research done on affirmations, and affirmations seem to work for people who have pretty good self-esteem to start with.
Okay.
Because they already kind of believe what they're telling themselves are wonderful or whatever. But they've been found to make people with low self-esteem feel worse about themselves because they kind of know they're lying to themselves, because the conscious mind is trying to outpower the unconscious feelings, of low self-esteem or anxiety or, self-criticism and so forth. So we kind of need to deal with the feeling before we deal with the thoughts. There's something called pattern matching which occurs. Okay, and pattern matching happens in the brain where we sort of pick up something from the environment and we respond to it instinctively before the conscious mind gets involved. Okay, so I've worked a lot with war veterans, and what you find is that when someone becomes traumatized, it's kind of a hypnotic experience. Okay, this is what I mean by hypnosis isn't a therapy in itself. It's just a central human state of consciousness we experience. So the person,
Sure.
No one sits down with the person and says, okay, from now on, you're going to have a traumatic reaction every time you hear a car backfiring because it will remind you of being in Helmand province in Afghanistan. That's not a cognitive learning. So it's a hypnotic learning. And then there's a post-hypnotic suggestion from the environment when they get back to America or the UK or wherever. And something vaguely reminds the brain of the initial trauma, details surrounding it. And it'll pattern match, which is a non-cognitive process. Okay, it's a hypnotic process, and they'll hypnotically regress back to the original trauma. They kind of still know where they are, that they're not in Afghanistan anymore. But it's kind of outside of thinking, that kind of stuff, and they know that they're not in Afghanistan, or they know that it's not a bomb going off. It's a firework display or whatever.
Sure.
But the knowing can't outpower the emotion, because emotion has to do with survival. Embedded in the word emotion is motion. So emotion is powerful, and if it's very powerful, then we can't just outthink it. We have to deal with it in another kind of a way. We have to work on the level of the problem. That's maintained not through thinking. So someone could know they're being irrational, but that doesn't make any difference necessarily.
Right.
If you say, if someone's having a sort of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder response to fireworks going off because they were in a war zone before, then sitting down with them and just trying to explain to them that their fireworks are not bombs is going to be kind of patronizing. They sort of know that already.
Yeah.
So that, we do need to work on the level of the problem. So pattern matching occurs unconsciously.
Sure.
We don't know, and it happens with phobias as well. But also anger, uncontrolled anger, and also depression. Sometimes people feel depressed and they don't really know why, and it's a non-conscious and depression it oscillates as well. Sometimes we're more depressed and sometimes we're less depressed and so forth, or it varies. So forth. But yeah.
Excellent. I kind of want to go into your creative process, and obviously I'm not asking you to kind of spill your secret sauce here, but it is interesting to kind of know how it works when you are coming up with these sessions. So what's kind of the first thing that you'll do when you're trying to address a problem as a hypnotherapist?
What do you mean, a one-to-one session, or when we're doing the downloads?
I'm actually more curious to hear about your downloads, just because there's just so many different kinds out there.
Okay. Don't ask me to name them all, because we have over 1,000. It'll take a while. I'll sit down with a scriptwriter who trained in our diploma course several years ago, and we'll talk about the problem and the way it works. because all problems have a sort of mechanism to them. They work in a certain way. You find all depressed people tend to experience things in quite similar ways. They can be depressed about different things, and all phobias kind of work in the same way, and all PTSD does, and so forth. So we'll look at the wider patterns, how it works. We'll seek to build rapport, the first part of the script, with the person suffering whatever it is. Then we'll seek to instill hope, that it can change, and we're confident about that because we've seen people change, come out of all kinds of horrendous psychological situations. Then we'll look at some metaphors as well, because the unconscious mind is primarily metaphorical, and language is metaphorical. Every single word that I'm saying now, it just someone just made it up. It hasn't. None of the words have reality in themselves. They're just stand-ins for approximations of some bit of reality that you.
True. Absolutely true.
So metaphor is central. So we'll look at some metaphors. We might look at a little bit of de-traumatization in the download as well, and perhaps some follow-up suggestions and so forth. And so there'll be maybe a few minutes of sort of preamble, and then straight down into the hypnotic part. And sometimes people do say things like they can't remember, having contradicted what I said earlier, they can't remember exactly what we said. But generally speaking, you're kind of aware. Your unconscious mind can be operating, or is operating inevitably, at the same time that your conscious mind is operating. So, for example, if I'm working with a client and sometimes you have hypnotic phenomenon, so it could be a hand levitation in which they're not consciously moving the hand, but the hand starts to lift up by itself. And but the conscious mind can think it's funny or observe it even while the unconscious mind is doing it. But this happens in everyday life. If somebody has a panic attack, which is a horrible metaphor for high anxiety, then a part of them can observe themselves responding in that way. My God, my mouth's gone dry, my heart's beating, but it's not the conscious mind doing that, it's the unconscious mind doing that.
Right. It's almost like two separate entities almost.
It's a disassociation. My God, why am I acting so weird?
And I truly think it's great how these sessions are set up. And as I think I mentioned previously, I've listened to dozens and dozens of them, and the way you begin all of them, I think, is great, because you go in and you explain kind of what the issue is on a logical level. It's rational. So, and then you kind of dive into the session. And I really think that is a necessary part of these downloads, because it's good because you identify that logical part as well as that that subconscious, and I think the timing and the length is perfect too, because these tend to be about from what is it, like 20 to 30 minutes typically,
roughly.
Yeah.
And we do take pains to make it sensible. Sensible psychology is our kind of strapline. I worked with a fantastic psychologist called Joe Griffin for many years, and we would go around presenting to the National Health Service in the UK to thousands and thousands of health professionals, and he's extremely sensible and grounded and groundbreaking in his research and his thinking on psychology. So really, you want any hypnosis that you do embedded within a very sensible, knowledgeable framework. It's not just about being kind of airy-fairy, so we say over here, or nebulous, or wind chimes are fantastic, but it's not all about that kind of stuff. We do need to have a knowledge of current scientific research into human psychology, and use hypnosis alongside that to make it more effective, I think. I was extremely influenced as well by someone called Milton Erickson, who's based in Phoenix in Arizona, died in 1980. He sort of wrote up many case histories. People wrote about him more than he wrote himself. He wasn't really a theorist. He was a practitioner. He was a psychiatrist as well as a medical doctor, but perhaps the most famous hypnotherapist in the world. And he would use a sort of indirect approach as well. So he wouldn't just tell people what to experience. He would use analogy, metaphor, jokes, puns, parallel sort of processing, and task setting, and see the whole family and so forth, and use hypnotic language in a very creative way. And I was extremely influenced by him and read everything I could about him very early on.
Wow. And what was the name again?
Milton Erickson.
Milton Erickson. I'll actually put a link to that at the description, so if people want to find out more information as well, because I think our listeners tend to be pretty curious people. So
I've written a couple of articles on Milton Erickson. So I think there's if you type in my name and Milton Erickson, then he hasn't written about me, but I've written about him.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that might give people a sort of background.
Great. So, Mark, how long does it really take to affect change? And I know that's kind of a broad question here, but really, what kind of results should I expect from hypnotherapy?
It depends, really. If it's a one-off sort of problem, for example, if it's a one-off trauma, then hopefully it could be one session or one or two sessions. If somebody's whole life needs kind of, if there's multiple trauma, if they're depressed, if they're addicted to stuff, if they don't have any friends, if the damage is wide to the person's life, if you like, then of course it would take a lot longer. But it could be one or two times of listening, or it might be like a few times. It depends on the individual, and it depends on the extent to which they need help. Things can shift very, very fast with some people. And with other people, it takes a bit longer. If I see a smoker face to face, for example, or a heavy drinker, then I'm really looking to work as quickly as possible with them, and I'm really trying to affect the change in one session. Sometimes people find that one session of listening to a download will make all the difference, or sometimes they need a bit longer. Insomnia is another big one. So many people have sleep problems, and sleeping poorly kind of leaks into other facets of human functioning, and
it's tough. Yeah.
Yes. It's hard to go to work in the morning if you've only slept 2 hours. And what happens, of course, is that people then worry that they've got to go to work in the morning. Yeah. The more you worry, the more awake you are, because worry is a stimulant like caffeine. So sometimes people will listen to a sleep download, and they'll find they listen to it every night, and it just kind of relaxes them enough to either go to sleep, or which is obviously the aim, or to at least feel very relaxed if they are awake for a bit longer. Because if you're very relaxed and awake, you'll often get much of the benefit that you would if you were asleep. So, because people get very hung up on, am I conscious? Am I asleep? Right. But if you're very tense while you're asleep, which people can be, they might be less rested than if they're awake and very relaxed. So that's something to reassure ourselves with.
Great. And this is kind of a blanket question here, but you mentioned some of these things, almost like common themes that people have. So just getting relaxed, or being able to let go over anxieties. But what do you think are some behaviors and even thought patterns that are holding people back in their careers? A lot of the times I'll talk to people who just can't do an interview right because they're so nervous, and sometimes it is that level of confidence, and people don't think they have the courage to make a job transition. But what do you think, Mark?
Well, if you talk about thinking patterns, and one of the biggest problems that many people have, certainly depressed people, but also people who get very anxious, is absolutist thinking. There's some research done recently with 6,000 forum users on depression websites, or mental health websites. And what they found, the greater to which the person was depressed, the more all or nothing language that they use. So they talk about completely this or completely that, or this is a total nightmare, or other people are totally perfect and I'm terrible. So they wouldn't talk in shades of grey. They would talk in absolutes. And we know that emotional problems track alongside all or nothing thinking, or absolutist or extremist thinking. And part of the problem has been that the sort of positive thinking cult, if you like, has encouraged more of that. So I've got to be totally awesome in this interview. No, you haven't.
Yeah,
you just got to be good enough, and you've got to be natural, and you need to know about who you're trying to get the job with. Obviously, you need to do your research.
Exactly.
And you need to be calm enough, and you need to be interested, and you don't need to be intimidatingly perfect. Because people don't necessarily want that. They want someone who's enthusiastic and open. Depending on the role, of course.
Sure.
They wouldn't necessarily want that for a computer, sort of programmer. But yes, yeah. So the absolutist thinking, the all or nothing. Now, if we look at learned helplessness, was a term coined by someone called Martin Seligman back in 1974, and he found that people would globalize the feeling of not being able to do something. So for example, if you really are helpless in one situation, but then you go out of that situation, you still behave as if you can't, as if you're helpless and hopeless, but you're not anymore. Okay, learned helplessness. Imagine a bird that's stuck in a cage for many years, and then someone leaves the door open. The bird comes out of the cage, but it doesn't fly because it doesn't believe it can fly. But of course, it can fly. So, so it's learned helplessness. And actually, he researched even dogs and rats exhibit learned helplessness. So it's not really a cognitive thing, but it's central to depression and giving up hope. So that's one facet. That's one thinking or experiential style that trips people up. Also, the absolutist thinking that I was talking about. Depressive thinking, which can certainly strike anyone, even if they're not depressed. We've all done it probably. Has three bits to it, really. So if somebody, something goes wrong, you might blame yourself. So you internalize the negative. So the relationship ended. I screw up everything. It's down to me, or you blame everybody else except yourself. So locus of control is important.
Sure.
To what extent can you control something? And then you've got globalizing negatives. So this bad thing happened. Everything's crap. One bad thing. I failed the test. My life's ruined. Of course, and you hear people say things like this all the time.
Yeah, it's very sad. It is very sad, and I'll kind of bring a comparison here. So I went to a school in which there was, I think it was a record amount of suicides in 1 year, and it was incredibly sad because they were the students that put almost everything, their entire lives, all in their academics or these tests, and so. It's almost like that same line of thinking that this is everything, So,
and this is my one chance,
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly a problem that, or if I don't get this job, there's no point. My life's ruined. Impressive bias is called globalization.
Sure.
And often they'll do the opposite. So they'll say, well, yeah, that one thing in my life's good, but everything else is terrible. So they're spreading the badness, And the other thing, which is the most depressing thing, is stabilizing negatives.
Okay.
Destabilizing positives. So what that means is you're making it permanent in your mind. So, I lost my last job. I'll never get another job, or nothing ever good has happened to me. So negatives are seen in terms of ever and never. Nothing ever works out. I'll never be any good. I'll never get a job. But good things are seen as fragile and temporary. It's too good to last. And you hear people using that bias all the time. And to be aware that it is a bias is a very useful thing.
Excellent, Mark. Your answers have been absolutely incredible so far, and I think what it should do is help people really have an understanding of what hypnosis is, and kind of hopefully people have a good idea of where they are kind of in their confidence levels and their emotional states. So, you may be listening to this now just because you had a curiosity about, what hypnosis can do, or you may have an actual change you want to make. But really what I think this should do is educate listeners. And, like I said, I think you've done a great job of doing that so far. And now for the fun part here. So we're going to be offering a sneak peek into hypnosis. And the goal is to offer you the sneak peek, especially if you haven't been hypnotized before, and potentially lead you to thinking about how it can be used in other avenues. So listen to me right now, especially if you've been zoning out. Pause this right now if you are in the car or operating heavy machinery, anything that requires your attention just at all, because I just want to make sure that all of you are putting your attention to this by not focusing on other things. And just once again, just knowing that it's not safe to be doing other things. So Mark always says, just find a comfortable place to either relax or lie down. And I think that's the best way to do it. All right, I will let Mark unpause right now and take it over from here.
What you could do is just let your eyes close, and you can focus your attention on the eyelids themselves. And you really don't have to pay attention to the words particularly. Your conscious mind can do its usual thing and analyze perhaps, or criticize, or do whatever it likes to do. But there's another part of you which is apart from that part. There's the part that breathes and circulates blood and produces dreams, looks after the body, and does all kinds of things for you without you having to think about that at all. And it's really that part that I'm talking to right now. You'd always imagine that your eyelids have little weights on them. That's it. It's weighing them down with comfort. And as you relax more completely to the words or the spaces between the words, you just notice your breathing. And every time you breathe out, you exhale, the body relaxes a little more, almost as if you can imagine relaxation as a color, just filtering through the muscles and into the hands and into the toes. Maybe the fingers could feel a little lighter as you begin to relax more. Or maybe the toes could feel a little lighter. Now, I'd like you just to imagine, you don't have to visualize, but just be aware of the reality of maybe a staircase. Maybe 10 steps leading down to somewhere very, very beautiful. Could be outside steps or inside steps. Really doesn't matter. So, and what you're going to find is that as you go down each step, your body and mind can feel more relaxed with each step. You could imagine what that staircase might look like, or just get a sense of it. Maybe the air around it, or the light, and what the light would have to be like in order to be very restful, very, very calming. And on the count of 1, just taking the first step into a deep and beautiful sense of serenity and tranquility. Almost getting a sense of what it's like to feel a step beneath the sole of the foot, and 2. That's it. And 3. With each count, you can just get a sense of deepening rest and calm. And also into your unconscious mind can come the kind of place you'd need to be in order to relax so, so deeply. And 4. It could be an outside place, or a place you've been to, or would love to go back to, or would love to visit someday. Somewhere where the colors are restful and the air is comfortful and the colors are peaceful, and just the surroundings are it's very, very peaceful and calm. And 4 and 5, halfway down that staircase, and the part of you, the part apart from the part listening to my voice, part that dreams and knows how to relax and heal and feel so good sometimes. That part is the part that I'm really talking to now. And other parts of you can do what they like. But that part, the unconscious mind, is the part that can take you down to 6, and you really don't have to pay attention, or don't have to do anything or not do anything. Just be carried along by the words as you relax deeper and deeper. And 7. And 8. almost to the bottom of those steps, 9 and 10, just going through in your mind to kind place that enables you to feel more relaxed, perhaps than any other time. Logically, there's a time in everyone's life in which you're more completely wrapped in relaxation than at any other time. You don't have to feel that now. But what I'd like you to do in a few moments is to imagine what it would feel like on every single particle level to feel more relaxed and calm than at any other time. Almost as if even the air around you is absolutely full of calm and rest. It's like a part that doesn't usually stop for very long within you, a deep part of you, right in the mind, that maybe runs around a lot or goes up and down a lot. That part can be very, very still. Might as well take a break. And what you find is when that part of you is very, very still, feels very clear, like the calm surface of a pool, reflects reality much more evenly. The inner part of you that can be very still and just reflect reality more the way it is. And that feels so right. It feels so good. That stillness can soothe around the body. The fingers may feel lighter now. It's like a healthy, healing force right the way through the hands and the mind and the little muscles in the face can relax more completely. You really don't have to try to do anything. But your unconscious mind, so deep within your unconscious mind, there's a wellspring of pure hope and capacity. There's your destiny within your unconscious mind. And within a few moments, as you relax even deeper on one level, another part of you, you get a sense of observing yourself from some future time, doing something you had no idea you could do so effectively. And I really don't need to know what that is. And you can be surprised just viewing yourself doing something from a future time that you had no idea you could do so well. It's something really good for you and for other people. And even the air around you can feel softer and calmer. And even the colors around you, wherever you happen to be more beautiful. And the area below your feet and above your head can all feel more relaxed. And your immune system works so much better as you relax in this way. And you can feel very, very tranquil or just really peaceful. You could wake up tomorrow morning and just feel a little lighter. It's just a feeling. That's it, from the unconscious mind. feeling lighter but stronger. That's it. Humorous and flexible in your thinking. Creative but focused. That's a wonderful state of mind to be in. And what you can do with that as a tool, taking you into the future. There may have been a time where you really had fun. You really laughed and just had a good time. You felt good about everything. May have been a time like that. Your body knows about that. Your body knows about that feeling, that kind of light feeling. Maybe very curious about something, or just having fun, or just feeling right in many ways. Even when you were very young, and the world's big, and before we'd learned to limit things down into small boxes, and the world is full of limitless possibility. Just that feeling, the very powerful feeling. Your hands know about that, even if you don't. Your toes know about that feeling. And your muscles know about that. And the way your back can relax when you sleep deeply at night. Everything can relax because your unconscious mind knows how to do things you don't know how to do consciously. And for now, you can just be aware that you can rest in this place whenever you need to. You can relax here, the theater of the mind, in which you can observe future behaviors from yourself. See yourself doing all kinds of things that are really good for you to do. Then you can come back here anytime you choose. For now, just begin to drift back to the bottom of those steps. Whatever they look, could be the same steps or different steps even. Just taking you back to everyday awareness. Your conscious mind can be more or less engaged in this. It really doesn't matter. And now you can just get the sense of being aware of those eyelids again. And maybe they feel very, very heavy, the way they do when you sleep deeply and they're shut tight with tranquility, almost glued together with calm and rest. Coming back from 10 and to 9, maybe drifting up those steps or walking up them. That's getting a sense of like when you walk in a dream and you feel the ground or steps beneath the feet. And 8 and 7 and 6 and 5 and 4. And you don't even have to know consciously how good you can feel later on. And 3. That's it. And 2. And maybe a little heaviness in those eyelids for a while. That's it. Maybe a little shut tightness in those eyelids as they're so relaxed. Maybe they won't open until your unconscious mind lets you know that it's going to take responsibility for you learning in the best way possible. And 2 and 1. Starting to open those eyes. That's it. Okay.
All right. I did not. I need a moment right now just to come out of that. That is amazing.
I apologize. I had a bit of a sore throat there.
I'm blown away by your ability to do that live, just right here in front of everyone. This was not recorded separately. Mark did this right here, during today's podcast episode session. So just wow, true professional. I'm still blown away. So I don't know also how many, this is the first time that I've been hypnotized on a podcast, and this may be the first time anyone's been hypnotized on a podcast as a host. So breaking ground here. So Mark, thank you very much for joining us on this episode here. I can't really thank you enough for all the work that you do. I think it's so impactful and really going out and making a difference in people's lives and on such a deep level. So thank you very much. And for the job seekers who are a part of this this listening base, could you talk about some of the downloads you have available for them in their job search?
Yes, now you're asking the actual names, that we've got so many. We have job search motivation. We have one overcoming interview anxiety.
Yeah, I think that there's one called Beat Job Interview Nerves and Anxiety.
Yeah.
This is the one I saw earlier, which I think that could be a really good one.
Yeah. So we've got an array of job-related ones, and also dealing with tricky people at work.
There's always
that, as we all know. Hopefully, we're not the tricky people ourselves, and yeah, sort of work motivation as well when you're at work, and overcoming procrastination. And all kinds of things,
That's a good one.
But once you find one that's related to work, then you'll see all the others as well. So on the side.
Sure, and that's on hypnosisdownloads.com.
Yeah, that's all there. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, it's good you bring that up because we actually just did a rebranding ourselves. I don't know if you saw previously, but we were the LEG Job Seekers podcast, but now we are the Career Warrior podcast.
I did see that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good. I like that.
The reasoning is we are helping job seekers. That's a big part of our audience, but we also want to make sure we're helping people who really want to put their best foot forward in their jobs and their careers. So you called out, stop procrastinating, stop, dealing with tricky people at work. Those are all things that anyone can deal with, no matter what. So
that's right. And also finding what's right for you to do as well. So often in life we're told by other people, or we're molded, not even told explicitly, but molded by society to expect that we should do something which isn't really right for us. So sometimes we have to think about, what do we really want to be doing? What profession would serve us well, and what profession would we serve really well as well because of who we are, what type of person we are. So I think that's an important thing to think. I'd like to also add that we do provide an online depression program, which is free for people who can't afford it. And it's if you go to clinicaldepression.co.uk, we haven't got the .com, then you can sign up for the free natural depression treatment, and there is an option to pay, but you don't have to pay. So that's something that might be useful for some people who know people who are depressed or are a bit depressed themselves. So
perfect, Mark. Anything else or any other words of advice for job seekers?
I would say, obviously, never give up and keep going, because you never know what's around the next bend. And also believe in yourself, because you are by definition much more effective than you know that you can be, because we know that the human brain is absolutely incredible. It can do amazing things. It can switch off pain. I've seen that. It can overcome trauma very, very fast. It can come out of depression, can stay out of depression. It can learn incredibly quickly. But we don't, we don't always know what we can do. It's almost like you come into the world, you've got all these features that you don't know that you have.
Yeah.
And just bear that in mind, because you can do much more than you think you can do, and for the rest of your life.
Wow, absolutely incredible, Mark. Yeah, there's I don't know who said it, but somebody said that there should be like a manual for your brain or something, because you weren't given that when you were born, but we all need it. So excellent. So thank you for joining us for our 21st episode of the Let's Eat Grandma Career Warrior podcast. So as I mentioned earlier, we have some resources and some things that we're going to drop in the description link. So if you're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, whatever it is, just check out the description. We're going to have a link to hypnosisdownloads.com, as well as information about Mark and some of the other things that we discussed in this podcast. So thank you very much for joining us. Make sure to really, really, really put your best foot forward in your job search. Make sure to keep your head up in every way possible. and just keep listening. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us a review if you feel like this has been a very helpful and impactful episode. So I thank you very much. And Mark, once again, thank you for joining us, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Chris.